Welcome to the program. The West African Examinations Council, WAEC, has cancelled subject results of 718 candidates who took part in this year's Basic Education Certificate Examination, BECE. A statement from WAEC also revealed the cancellation of entire results of 177 candidates. According to WAEC, the results of 93 candidates have also been withheld. A total of 603,328 candidates from 20,395 schools participated in the examination. The results have been dispatched to various schools through the Metropolitan, Municipal and District Directors of Education. Candidates can also access their results online via the WAEC website using their index number, exam year, exam type, PIN and serial number. Let's cross over now and speak to John Kapi, who is the head of public affairs at the West African Examination Council. So thank you so much for your time. We know that the subject results of 1,240 candidates have been withheld. Are you expecting these students to come to WAEC and be able to follow up on these results that have been withheld, or how should they go about it?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. These candidates would be duly notified between tomorrow and Tuesday. Our personnel will go around the country to each of the regions where these infractions occurred, and then those candidates will be given a hearing, of course, by our staff who are going to meet them in their regions.
Looking at the number of candidates involved, is this not worrying?
It's absolutely worrying. That is a reason we've mounted this crusade. When we held our stakeholder engagements across the country, this was one major issue that we talked about because it is a threat to our education. And so we've been talking to people, we've been mounting campaigns and hoping that the larger populace of this country who value our education would also join in the crusade to ensure that we limit the amount of irregularities and eventually, eradicate it.
Right, cancellation of the entire results of 177 candidates. What really happened?
So there are a number of infractions that, would attract some sanctions. For these 177 candidates, a majority of them had in their possession mobile phones. And for that particular, offense, you would have your entire results canceled. So basically, that was the major reason, actually, that these people had their entire results canceled.
Why do we still grapple with examination malpractices after years of reforms and education? What do you really think is the problem?
Basically, I think that there should be a certain change of mindset on the part of our candidates, on the part of supervisors and vigilators, as well as parents. I mention parents because for those who are in basic schools, I think that the parents have absolute control over them, and so they can determine at what time they carry their mobile phones and how they manage to sneak these into the examination halls. On the part of invigilators, I believe that we are simply not doing due diligence. I say so because the rule is that candidates should be searched thoroughly before they go into the hall. And so if candidates are found in the examination hall with mobile phones, obviously one out of a whole lot of reasons can be assigned that they were not properly searched, and so they could sneak these in. And also, probably with the connivance of these invigilators, we do not have evidence. That's why I say probably. But I think that if all of us work together, parents would take the phones away from the children, invigilators ensure that they search them thoroughly, and then also pace around the classroom in the course of the examination to ensure that nobody is doing anything untoward. Then we would be able to solve this issue of mobile phone infractions.
Right. As WAEC is working with other stakeholders to ensure that this is resolved, has there been any thought on how this could have an impact on these candidates psychologically?
Obviously, it is not a good sign for a first timer. I say first time because this is their first external examination. And at your first attempt, you have your entire results cancelled. Obviously, that is going to have a psychological effect on these candidates. But then schools, school authorities for that matter, would do us a good service if they choose to counsel these candidates before they go in, and if they listen attentively to us when we conduct our sensitization programs. Because at these programs, we indicate clearly that any mobile phone infraction would attract entire cancellation of their results. I think we've been working in collaboration with the Ghana Education Service. And in fact, this issue that has been raised, we are all very much aware of it. And we believe that going forward, we can, ask that the counselors in the schools do a better job. I say better advisedly, just so that, these candidates would understand, the effect of carrying a mobile phone into an examination hall.
Right, this is definitely going to be a challenging time for the 177 candidates involved. And thank you so much for the insight as well. I have been engaging John Kapi, who is the head of public affairs at the West African Examination Council.
Now, in Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Ernest Kofi David says efforts are being made to secure financial clearance for some 6,000 teachers whose salaries have been delayed. His remarks follow earlier protests by some newly trained teachers who picketed at the premises of the Education Ministry earlier to demand payment for their 10-month salary arrears.
The process for onboarding, when we started, 16,000 plus teachers were onboarded. But then we couldn't finish processing all of them. So some 10,000 plus were able to be onboarded. Almost 6,000 were not able to be onboarded for various reasons. So we needed to apply for their clearance to be reactivated for us to be able to finish the onboarding process. And these are the teachers you usually see picketing.
I'm happy you mentioned that 10,000 people have been placed or put on the payroll, and you are working to make sure the other 6,000 are put on payroll, because you said you're going for extension of the clearance. Yes. To make sure it is done. They are also Ghanaians. They are qualified people.
Let's do some health stories now. The Ministry of Health says 33,600 vaccines have been secured to tackle the outbreak of Mpox in Ghana. The Ghana Health Service says as of August 20, Ghana has recorded confirmed cases of 424. According to the Health Service, Mpox continues to spread primarily through close contact with infected individuals, and the Health Service officials are urging the public to take simple but effective precautions to limit the spread of the disease. These include avoiding close physical contact with anyone showing symptoms or who is confirmed to be infected, washing hands regularly with soap and water, and avoiding frequent contact with your eyes, nose, and mouth. The public is being encouraged to seek medical attention immediately one feels unwell.
Let's talk security-related issues. The Akutia District Police Command has arrested a 33-year-old man for unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition en route to Akutia. Police say the suspect, identified as Bernard Kumiofosu, was arrested by a patrol team from the Eastern South Command while wielding a Taupa double-barrel pump action gun loaded with a 5 AAA live cartridges and 2 FTB blank cartridges. According to a police situation report, the suspect was intercepted near the Akutia St. Dominic Hospital A search conducted on the vehicle led to the retrieval of the weapons. During interrogation, Ofosu admitted ownership of the exhibit and produced firearms, license dated January 30, 2025. He has since been detained to assist with investigations. With the Akwatia by-election just a week away, security remains a major concern. The police administration has vowed to enforce strict security protocols, indicating that no chances will be taken. Already, 5,000 security personnel have been scheduled for deployment to maintain law and order before, during, and after this polls.
Now, Ghana's prisons are bursting at the seams with overcrowding, poor sanitation and limited facilities pushing the system to the breaking point. Recent presidential amnesties have brought some relief, but concerns remain over whether lasting reforms will follow. Wisdom Safo has more in this report.
Ghana's prisons have long been described as overcrowded, poorly ventilated and unhealthy, with disease and death all too common. As of 11th August 2025, the country's prisons held 14,044 inmates, far above the approved capacity of 10,265. This left 3,779 more people in custody than the system was built to hold, curating an overcrowding rate of 36.8%. President John Dramani Mahama, during his swearing-in of key security officers, acknowledged the crisis and pledged to introduce alternative sentencing and rehabilitation. His goal is to shift prisons from being mere places of confinement to centers of reform.
Overcrowding remains a major challenge in our prison service, and my administration will intensify efforts to implement alternative sentencing methods to ease the pressure on our prison facilities. At the same time, the prison service must embrace modernization with digital record keeping and enhanced security measures to ensure effective management. True justice is not only about punishing wrongdoing, but also about offering a path to redemption. That is why the introduction of the prison service parole regulations, which will soon be laid before Parliament, marks a bold step in ensuring that individuals who have demonstrated genuine rehabilitation are given a second chance to reintegrate into society as responsible citizens.
And Article 72 of the Constitution, the President has the power to grant pardons. This year, out of 1,014 cases presented by the Prisons Council, 998 inmates were granted amnesty. This decision reduces the prison population by 860, bringing the number down to 13,184 and easing congestion to 28.4%, still high by international standards. Analysts argue that long-term solutions must include alternatives such as community service, fines and rehabilitation programs, alongside better prison facilities with improved healthcare and sanitation. Without such reforms, amnesties risk becoming only a temporary response to chronic overcrowding rather than a genuine tool of justice.
Following the presidential amnesty granted to 998 inmates across the country by President John Dramani Mahama, Amnesty International is urging the government to take further steps towards reforming Ghana's prison system. Country Director Genevieve Partington's request includes demands for an increase in feeding allowance of inmates and commuting all outstanding death row sentence to life.
Out of 183 inmates currently on death row, of which 7 are women, 87 were granted presidential amnesty, with their sentences officially commuted to life imprisonment. In 2024, Ghana partially abolished the death penalty through the passage of the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill. However, the crime of treason remains punishable by death. Genevieve Partington is now calling on the government to go further by commuting all remaining death row sentences and consider community service to first-time offenders or those with lesser crimes.
As of 2024, I'm aware that the feeding allowance was 1 cedi 80 pesos a day. We are requesting that the allowance be increased. The other request that we are making is that the rest of the persons on death row, their sentences be commuted to life imprisonment to ensure that we are completely abolishing the death penalty. Third request is that Ghana signs the second optional protocol of the ICCPR, Community Sentencing Bill. There needs to be progress on that.
She emphasized that inmates should not be dehumanized.
You've committed a crime, but it doesn't mean you should be punished for the rest of your life. You need to have access to resources. You need to have access to life, basically. Because what happens is that prison is not just a place of punishment. I think that is what people need to understand. Prison is also a place of rehabilitation, reform. When you are on death row, you can't have access to these programs. So it's like you are sitting there rotting in jail. Nothing is happening. So that is why Amnesty International advocates that there shouldn't be death row. It shouldn't exist. Justice system is not balanced. When you interview the persons on death row, you realize that most of them, when I say most, 90% of persons on death row do not have a degree. It means that a certain population in this country are in the prison system.
Under the presidential amnesty, a total of 787 first-time offenders will be released. Additionally, 87 inmates on death row will have their sentences commuted to life imprisonment, will see their terms reduced to a fixed 20-year sentence.
Let's head to Damongo now, and the final funeral rites of the late Alhaji Mohammed Muniru, one of the 8 people who died in the military helicopter crash, is underway in Damongo. Scores of mourners have gathered at the Damongo Community AstroTurf to pay their last respects. My colleague Christopher Marco is in Damongo and joins us live with more details. Chris, how is Damongo looking like? As we understand, scores of mourners are in town as of now. Chris, if you can kindly unmute. Right.
Okay, so Judith, if you can hear me, we are here at the AstroTurf in Damongo, where the final funeral rites of the late Sandra Bewura, Alhaji Mohammed Limuna, is taking place. Now, scores of mourners from across the country have gathered here today to pay their last respects to the late chief. And you all know that the national funeral was held in Accra for all 8 persons who unfortunately lost their lives in that tragic helicopter crash. But as custom and tradition demands, in the Gonja perspective, they are supposed to hold the final funeral rites today to mark the end of the life that the late Alhaji Mohammed Limuna led on earth. And so in the morning, earlier, around 10 a.m., a Muslim prayer was held for the soul of the late Alhaji Mohammed Limuna. Now, we are taking messages from the various kingdoms, that is, the surrounding kingdoms within the Gonjaland. We have Sabon, we have Maputo, and other kingdoms. That is what we are experiencing now. Some messages have been taken already, and we have also the government delegation led by the NDC national chairman, Johnson Asedu Ketia, arriving some moments ago to also pay their last respect to the late chief.
Right, and if you could tell us more of the people who are present and how this entire funeral rites is going to go like in terms of the program outline.
Okay, so let me start from how the funeral is going to go. You know, it's a Muslim funeral, and so once the Quranic citation and the sermon is over, then it means that practically the funeral rite is over. The remaining ones is just some messages we are going to get from the government delegation and other traditional authorities who have gathered here. Like I indicated earlier, we have the national chairman of the ruling National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asedu Ketia, leading the government delegation.
Right.
We also have some ministers of state, members of parliament, chief executive officers, managing directors, as well as traditional authorities. And heavily represented here also is the Gonjaland Youth Association, ensuring that everything goes well in this last funeral of the late Mohammed Limuna.
Right, many thanks for your time. Christopher Mwako is our Northern Regional Correspondent. He has been bringing us all the details as regards to the final funeral rites being held for the late Alhaji Muniru, who died tragically in that helicopter crash on August 6.
Health Minister Kwabena Mensah-Kador is urging health workers across the country to remain calm after a video of him shaking hands with the man now accused of attacking a nurse at the Rich Hospital in a viral incident that took place earlier this week. In this Sunday's episode of Hot Issues, the minister sat down with host Kemini Amano and on the side of the story. Take a listen.
Irrespective of the provocation at any health facility, nobody, absolutely nobody, has the right to physically attack any health professional in this country. It's not a matter of persuasion. That must be made clear. So that's exactly what I did on camera. Then I saw a gentleman pulled out in a black saloon car. Actually, he didn't park well, so I was even telling them to tell him to park well. And then my officers, my directors around me told me, they drew my attention, that is the said RAF. Well, I'm not a social media person. I'm not so active on the social media. So then he was walking towards us. So I began asking, gentlemen, why did you do this? In his attempt to answer the question, he was walking towards us and stretching the arm, willing to whisper something into my ears. Can you tell me, should I push him? Should I shout him down? You see, let's face it. I'm a minister responsible for health for all health professionals. Yeah. But then, I'm also a minister responsible for health for all Ghanaians. And at the time I met them behind the scene, closed door meet, I told them that, look, this is one side of the story. And so I need to listen to the other side of the story as well. And so the gentleman whispered into my ears that, and this is what he said. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to review what he said to me.
This interview airs at 2 p.m. with Kemini Amano.
In other news this afternoon, children, some as young as 10, are trading classrooms for canoes, risking their lives on the open sea. With no life jackets, no safety gear, and only their bare hands on the nets, they are being trained to inherit a dangerous trade passed down through generations. For families like Isaac Kwesi and his 9-year-old son, Emmanuel, fishing is not just tradition, it's survival. But at what cost? Godwin Asidiba explores.
Out here on the open sea, the line between survival and danger is thin. These children, as young as 10, are exposed to the harsh realities of deep-sea fishing. Every day, they work alongside their parents, battling strong currents and unpredictable weather. But what's most striking is the risk they face. No life jackets, no safety equipment, just their bare hands gripping the nets and ropes as they try to learn a trade that has been passed down through generations. Dawn breaks over the waters of Elmina in Ghana's central region as the gentle sea breeze sweeps across the coastline. The sun blazes overhead as 35-year-old Isaac Kwesi and his 9-year-old son, Emmanuel Kwesi, prepare for their usual fishing trip out at sea. This tradition was passed down to Isaac by his father when he was as young as Emmanuel. Now, Isaac believes it helped shape him into a better person, and he is determined to pass on the same kind gesture to his son. Isaac carefully teaches Emmanuel everything he needs to know about the work. ensuring he won't struggle when they head out to sea.
My 5. My family will go to a couple. You will go to the Biawan Coscuna Bahom. Mbana and Mbana is our cabin 2, about 2, when our Coscu.
In just 9 years, Emmanuel has already been to sea countless times, always helping to scoop water from the boat.
Me papa me chobwa. Is also me tina machine. Is also me di jumper. Na is also me didi. Me shoes. Me shoes na me bele.
As the third out of 5 children, Emmanuel has lost interest in school, vowing never to return after dropping out in class 2.
Munya ni mukoska aye makono. Me papa ano ankodimba ko school na so mangse me pa school ko.
His father is at ease with his son's decision as it fits perfectly with his own plan for Emmanuel's future. Across the shores of Elmina, the cycle repeats itself. Child after child, like Emmanuel, walks away from their education to join the ranks of fishermen. It's a common practice, a tradition deeply embedded in the community's identity. It's lunchtime, and the food is ready and served. The senior colleagues gather to eat together first. What remains is then handed over to the children, who relish every bit of the meal. At night, as the water levels rise, most children in Elmina prepare for work. In the evening, the children gather at a designated spot to weave the nets they will use for fishing the next morning. At this hour, these children are often shirtless, walking barefoot with no supervision. Nana George recalls a time when he felt so sick that he could not eat while at sea for 2 days. He wants to return to school, but without anyone to care for him, he feels trapped. He works to earn money for his grandmother, with whom he lives.
School, class 4, Mineska, 4 million, 3 million, 5 million.
These children are gradually becoming sick. Eko Agent is slowly losing his eyesight. He tells me that fishing under the scorching afternoon sun is incredibly difficult, as his eyes constantly tear up from the harsh rays. But he has no other choice. When night falls, his vision becomes blurry. He has not been to the hospital because he cannot afford medical care. With both parents having left Elmina, he's now in the care of his grandmother.
And then they are going to do that. Yanko Posa, you are banner, other mine. See, I'm not doing this. I may. It's all a movement. Not when Oppose. Nana, sir, I know so good, sir. No, so, went to Mumbai. Move on, go baby. My person is car. Chow person. And Sana, Moyana.
Here in Elmina, as night falls, these children are preparing to head to sea early tomorrow morning. Child labor in fishing remains widespread in some communities, robbing these children of their childhood and education. This practice not only violates their fundamental rights, but also undermines efforts towards sustainable fishing, perpetuating a cycle of exploitation and hardship. Tonight, they will work until it's nearly dawn before they can leave for the sea. Absolutely. So the next morning, we actually journeyed to the middle of the sea. It was a risky one. You would see children as young as 9, 10 jumping into the sea trying to, you know, position the nets very well without life jackets. It was a traumatic journey for me. Wow. One of the riskiest I've ever taken.
I saw you eating with them. How was it?
I don't want to talk about the food. Right, so you're still watching Weekend Central live here on TV3. We are going for a quick break. We'll be back shortly. My name is Godwin Asidera.
And I am Judith Brown.
From the Takoradi Market Circle, from the heart of the Upper West Regional Capital,
from the heart of the Ashanti Kingdom,
reporting from Sunyani,
from the Central Business District of Navrongo.
The parliamentarians are on recess.
This is where it all unfolds, the moments that potentially alters the course of our nation and the world. These are the individuals we recognize, the voices we amplify, who appears on screen and who contributes behind the scenes. With professionalism at our core, we bring you news you can trust, impact journalism that makes a difference. This illustrates how diverse perspectives enhance our strength and reinforces our mission. This is 3 News. Leaders in breaking news, exclusive interviews, facts and analysis on TV, radio, online and digital. 3 News, first in news.
Welcome back from the break. Across all creative hubs, a new generation of digital artists are redefining what it means to become a storyteller in the 21st century. Ghana's animation industry is stepping into the spotlight as local creators blend culture, creativity, and resilience to bring uniquely Ghanaian stories to life despite economic and infrastructural challenges. Here's a report by Elizabeth Mawena.
Once considered a niche creative field, animation in Ghana is experiencing a cultural awakening. From short films to advertisement to web series and educational content, Ghanaian animators are using their art to tell compelling and locally rooted stories. These productions not only entertain but also serve as educational resources, teaching children about values, history, and identity through relatable visuals. Ghanaian animators are steadily carving a niche for themselves despite facing major economic and logistic challenges. An expert in animation, E.T. Mensah, elaborated on the revolution and relevance of animation, pointing out the popular animation techniques used in the industry.
When you say animation, I'm assuming you are thinking in terms of the cartoons and the like. But frankly speaking, when you look at animation in itself, animation works with frames. When I say it works with frames, it is generally defined as the art of creating movement. So it is the movement that you're creating. It is what happens between point A and point B that has the story. That bit is what we refer to as animation, right? So, and animation has been there for so many years. I dare say that animation was there before even film started. You understand? So, relevance. Animation has been relevant and it is still relevant today. The only thing I can say is that we are using a lot more of animation in our spaces than before. We have a two-dimensional animation, three-dimensional animation, and what we call organic animation. That is like 3D, but the traditional form of three-dimensional animation. Three-dimensional animation is the overarching name, but we have the computer 3D and then the traditional or organic 3D animation. And organic 3D animation has to do with getting a ball of clay, preparing it for the purpose, and then subjecting it through what we call stop motion technique in order to achieve movement for that item.
CEO of Maize Media, Jesse Sunkwa Mills, pointed out specific challenges that may lead to Ghanaian animators to favor 2D over 3D animation.
I think the reason you probably might find a lot of people doing more 2D animation than 3D animation probably be the lack of resource and tools to work with, because if you do a bit more research, you'd find out that 3D animation can be quite expensive. It would require a lot more tools to work with in terms of the machine you need to work with on a 2D animation would not require as high specs as compared to a 3D animation. In 3D animation, you're talking about like having something like a render farm, very high spec machines, because then you're going to work with very heavy tools and software. Unlike in 2D, with 3D animation, aside from a very heavy machinery that is required, you're going to also need quite a number of different kind of skill sets. So you need someone who can model characters, someone that can rig the characters, someone that can now animate the characters, and then someone that can put everything together and compose it and render. Usually that's like the main reason why you find a lot more people in the 2D space than in the 3D space.
Clearly, many young creators are using 2D and 3D animation to showcase Ghanaian culture, folklore and everyday life in a format that resonates with both local and international audience. What they need is support, patronage and support from industry players to market Ghana globally.
In other news this afternoon, fraud expert Richard Kumador is urging Ghanaians to exercise caution and conduct thorough checks before accepting funds from others. He warns that unsuspecting individuals could unknowingly become entangled in money laundering schemes. He made the remarks following reports of high-profile individuals allegedly involved in illicit financial activities.
Money laundering continues to pose a serious threat in Ghana, with several individuals reportedly linked to suspicious financial operations. The Office of the Special Prosecutor has previously released reports implicating prominent figures in ongoing investigations. According to Kumador, money laundering investigations typically examine the origin of funds, the nature of the business involved, and the final beneficiary. Explaining how such cases are handled in Ghana, Kumador outlined the investigative process and emphasized the long-term consequences of financial crimes.
Money laundering is just one little aspect of what we call financial crime. What is money laundering predominantly to the layman is any money that has no economic legitimate for earning the money. It's any money that you have no legal business for earning that money. Or it's any money that has been washed. It is presumed that all of us, the monies we make, the incomes we have, there has to be legal justification for those monies. And there has to be some level of economic activity that generates the money. But when you take economies like Ghana predominantly, where most of the things we do is cash-based, it's easier for people to be able to launder money.
As Ghana works to strengthen its financial oversight, experts like Kumado stress the need for public awareness and vigilance to curb the spread of money laundering.
So when it comes to the ultimate beneficial ownership, when you have a boutique, we are looking at your bloodlines, and we are looking at your associations, and we are looking at your family, and we are also looking at your area of business partnerships to see whether within that chain is there somebody there who is laundering money, and for fear of being identified is giving you the money down there into the boutique. You open a barbering shop and you are doing drugs there, or you are doing sakawa there in the inner room, and we think that at the end of the day the money that comes from the boutique or the barbering shop is 10,000, but it's actually 1,000. So they want to find out how all this is work. That is why when it comes to crimes of money laundering, the associated predicament or the predicate offenses are many. Therefore, innocent people, in ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So you have to do your due diligence.
He expressed concern over the damaging effects of financial crime on the Ghanaian economy.
People dealing with money laundering, the galamsey we are trying to fight, the other side of it they are not telling people is that it creates an underground competitiveness against the state. So if you have a lot of politicians in Galamsey and they have so much money more than the state, they can cause a coup d'etat. When you have so much money in the system, in the hands of illegitimate people, they will make the Ghana cedi deflate more, that the inflation will be higher. Because they are the same people who do businesses that make sure that they do what we call capital flight. So it put pressure on the city. And the city is always being affected. And it became a political issue, it became a governance issue. That is what we call undermining the statutory code or undermining the government, and they can create instability. So they set up forest bureaus, and they have the dollars, and they control the market. So the market space is being controlled by them and not the central government. And that level of parallel competition creates all manner of fraudulent activities. They could hire gangs to kill you. They can overthrow your government. They can create economic instability because they can create an unfair price distribution, and prices of goods and services will not be even, and it will create problems. And that is also one of the reasons why they are fighting the galamsey.
Kumado added that safeguarding the financial crime is crucial to protecting the country's reputation on the global stage.
Ghana's fashion industry continues to grow, showcasing creativity and talent on global platforms. But behind the glamour lie persistent challenges. Leading fashion brands say the sector is being held back by limited access to raw materials and a lack of financial support. Fashion designers in Ghana have been sharing the hurdles they face and the resilience it takes to thrive.
Back in 2017, the Export-Import Bank of Ghana pledged $10 million to boost the textiles and garments industry. Fast forward to June 2025, the Ministry of Trade and Industry reaffirmed government's commitment to supporting the sector. Fashion entrepreneurs say the promises haven't translated into meaningful change. Many designers lament that nearly all fabrics and materials must be sourced from abroad before a single masterpiece can be created.
When it comes to resourcing here in Ghana, I don't think we have everything. We always have to go out to source fabrics. We don't have variety. We know we have our African prints and stuff, but then I wouldn't say they are boring. They are just, I don't think they're evolving.
We still have challenges with the fashion industry. People don't see it as lucrative enough to put money in there. I don't know if government is giving money somewhere. I don't know about it, but you don't really get people to understand where you're coming from to even invest into it. So people don't really buy into that. And also sourcing. You have to source everything abroad. Everything's imported. We don't have industry producing for fashion industry. Apart from kente, even with the kente, the threads have to be imported. We are not producing our own threads now. Even pins to the core Nothing is being done here.
Where the challenge actually comes is the business resource. Because outside, there are so many resources that help young people to quickly set up the brand and then scale up. However, here, especially in Ghana, there's a little more to be done in terms of supporting the creative industry.
Co-owner of BECE Ghana Limited, Samaya Deidre says the cost of importing items needed for production is high.
Anyone subsidizing things for you when you're trying to import it in here, everything has to be your money. So you have to work extra hard to achieve what you're looking for.
Yolanda Kumson, founder of Yoli Kumson fashion brand, bemoaned the disunity among creative designers.
Here in Ghana, fashion industry is like every designer in their own. That's one thing that is not too great about us, because like everybody it feels it's a competition, but it doesn't have to be. Even if it says it can be a healthy one. But here in Ghana, every designer is on their own and they are not trying to open up to any other person, like any other designer.
Operations manager and co-owner of BECE Ghana Limited, Kabote Didra, says as part of their social impact efforts, they have trained over 500 young girls in various aspects of the fashion business.
Our bets we are playing in the fashion destiny of Ghana, if I'll call it that. Because when we came to meet, we should try and make it better. 15 years ago, some things and some techniques that were being used now, nobody ever thought about it. I guess people have passed through us, and we are trying to change the perception and what is normal. It will take a while.
George Tete, creative director for Atatete, believes Ghana can compete globally in the fashion industry.
I absolutely believe that Ghanaian fashion or Ghanaian fashion brands can compete globally. Because when it comes to creativity, we have it here.
As we mark World Entrepreneurship Day, Ghana's fashion creatives are not just asking for support, they are demanding action.
Now, maize farmers in Mamikrobo in the Afram Plain South District are struggling to find buyers for their produce. This has resulted in tons of maize going to waste.
The Afram Plain South District in the Eastern region is one of the food baskets of the country. The area has vast arable lands for agricultural purposes, with maize farming a significant part of the local economy. Maize farmers in Mamikrobo are appealing for buyers as their produce begins to rot. Despite reducing their prices from 1,000 Ghana cedis to 500 Ghana cedis per sack, they are still struggling to attract customers. Many are facing significant losses, with some forced to sell at giveaway prices due to the lack of demand. The cost of production remains high, with farmers spending about 700 cedis per acre, making it difficult to break even. Though the farmers have erected barns to store the maize, these facilities are inadequate, leading to severe post-harvest losses. Farmers are therefore calling on the government to intervene, particularly through the National Food Buffer Stock Company, to guarantee minimum prices and provide a ready market. Maize is in abundance, but we are struggling to get buyers.
The
price of maize bag has been reduced, but interestingly, we are still struggling to get buyers.
And
we are appealing to the government to come and purchase maize at the farm place. We are informing government that farmers are now capable of producing enough maize to feed the country, so government shouldn't import maize anymore. The district chief executive for Kwewu Afram Plain South, Moses Tangi, acknowledged the challenges. He urged the government to activate the national buffer stock system to save farmers from further post-harvest losses.
Oba Afram Plain South. And a crane can abraba ma at a 4 crane and at a 4 mount. Impulse bebre by fertilizer and weedicides. Until everybody went into farming, serious farming. They say I say food is in abundance in Afram Plain South. They say I say Honorable Joseph Apia Boating.
As I speak, the Member of Parliament for the constituency has 15,000 bags of maize, and I personally also have 3,000 bags of maize. So what the farmers are saying concerning the abundance of maize is true. We are appealing to government to put measures in place to help market the farm produce.
Abruna Abuswa Hano, you bet me at our store for future user and ka ebeboa.
Well, and that's all we have for you for the news right here on Weekend Central. I don't know what you have to say. I just want to say congratulations as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yesterday, and I congratulated you
did?
Yesterday as well. Yes,
I couldn't wish.
At the end, and we wish you all the best as you continue right there in London.
Thank you so much, Judith.
And so wrap up here. My name is Judith Brown. I've been doing this with.
My name is Godwin Asedwa. We'll see you next week. Bye.